Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the main Sunday political news that Rishi Sunak had been holding talks with Dominic Cummings in the summer. And although Sunak backed out of a deal with Mr Barnard Castle, as Labour are describing him, it is helping Starmer paint Sunak as a leader panicking and lurching from one failed idea to another. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So as we gear up for election year, Labour and the Conservatives are setting up their major attack lines against each other. The Conservatives are reported to be wanting to put Labour under pressure over its borrowing intentions. Now, Labour have plans to build up to £28 billion per year investment in the green industrial revolution, for which we're currently falling badly behind. It's a bit up in the air as to exactly when we'll reach that £28 billion a year. The Tories are trying to make out that it's going to lead to horrendous tax raise. I mean, it's borrowing, isn't it? In which case, you'd have to ask the Tories why they're comfortable borrowing 140 odd billion a year right now, and have done for a few years and still going to do for another couple of years. Labour's £28 billion a year is for jobs and infrastructure. The Tories' £140 billion a year is for what? To service the fraud and wealth expansion for multimillionaires that they have been driving. That's what. But Labour, in return, are painting Sunak as a political leader out of ideas. Now, this is not a difficult one to demonstrate. If we look at the achievements of Rishi Sunak in 2023, what do we have? We have the Windsor Framework. And that's it. Now, the Windsor Framework is a practical implementation of the Northern Ireland Protocol, but all it really represents is the Tories agreeing to abide by the oven-ready deal that they won the last election on the back of. Everything else has been about dismantling what investment we had. Public buildings such as schools and hospitals have been collapsing, and we don't have a building programme to repair or replace them, much less prevent further collapses. House building targets have been cancelled multiple times. HS2 was scaled back again and then cancelled altogether, which is where Dominic Cummings comes in. So the Sunday Times are reporting that Sunak held conversations with Cummings in the summer about bringing him back to help with the election, but then lost his nerve. The way Cummings seems to tell the story is he agreed to come back and create a Labour smashing election machine in return for Sunak taking government seriously when he won. By taking government seriously, what Cummings means is letting Cummings run the country as the power behind the throne, as Boris Johnson began to do before his now wife had him booted out of Downing Street in a power struggle. Of course, for Cummings to name as his price this power after the election, he would have had to genuinely believe that he can win the election for the Tories from this point. So, you tell me, strategic genius with a cunning plan that nobody else has come up with, or raging egomaniac living in his own drug-induced world? I suspect the latter. From Sunak's point of view, it's like you could argue, well, why would he just not bring Cummings back if he thought he would do some good? Given that it would be to help him win the election, as is just been assumed there. Or was his plan to bring Cummings back just to completely wreck Whitehall to further salt the earth for the incoming Labour government? Because it seems an odd deal to back out of for Sunak. If we can believe this claim from Sunak, and it's always from Cummings, it's always a huge if where he's concerned. Sunak would have only had to hold up his end of the bargain if he won the election. It's possible that part of the deal was not so much Cummings getting his way after the election, but before as well. According to the article, Cummings suggested a number of policies. They included raising the middle income tax band from 50,000 to 100,000. But then he also reportedly advised Sunak to settle the NHS strikes. And you think, well, okay, how would the government be able to do that if it's also going to, at the same time, lose tens of billions of tax revenues by changing the income tax bands like that? He also apparently advised leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. Afterwards, when the meeting became known about, Cummings said, he would rather the Tories lose than continue in office without prioritising what's important for voters. Apparently, even less public spending, losing our human rights and being an international pariah is what's important to voters. I'll remind people there was another report a few months ago which revealed a discussion between Sunak and Cummings in which Cummings was reported to have told Sunak to do mental stuff in order to wrong-foot his opponents. And it's believed this led to the full cancellation of HS2. It was certainly mental stuff. And the way the Times article describes Sunak's meetings with Cummings in the summer, it was essentially a loss of nerve in two ways. His 5 priorities had been devised by Isaac Levidow. Now, this is the Tory election strategist. This is the one who's going to run their campaign. Levidow had told Sunak that they wouldn't yield positive results in the polls in 2023. In other words, this is a long-term strategy. You need to stick with it. But by summer, Sunak was losing his nerve and was persuaded that a change of direction was needed. Now, I've said for most of the year, it's clear that Sunak never had a long-term strategy because he kept changing his focus. You know, it was like, oh, these are the 5 priorities. Then it's like, oh, no, we need to be a tech bro. And then it was, oh, we won Uxbridge because of ULEZ. Oh, yeah, we're just going to do that across the whole country now. Every time something didn't quite work out, he just switched to something else. But I could perhaps amend my statement and say that Sunak has never stuck with a long-term strategy because he lacks the nerve to do so. So feeling that Levidow's plan wasn't working, even though he'd been told not to expect results before the end of 2023, he approached Cummings. But he felt Cummings was too risky. An assessment I would definitely agree with. Just to emphasise, by the way, Downing Street don't deny these meetings with Cummings took place. And they don't deny that they took place with Sunak's chief of staff. They just point out that no job offer was made. Well, that's fine because that's consistent with what's in this article. So if we assume that the general events in this article are true, and if Downing Street aren't bothering to deny it, then we probably can, where does this leave Sunak and the Tories? Well, although the meetings with Cummings are very interesting just because he's as mad as a hatter, because nothing ultimately came of them, other than the possible scrapping of HS2, what was actually more interesting to me was the part involving Levidow. Because let's break the situation down. Isaac Levidow is going to run the Tory election campaign. He's going to be directly running Conservative campaign headquarters operations from tomorrow. He's going to be installed there. That means that Tory campaigning from now on, including the by-election that's coming, will be overseen on a day-to-day basis by a professional strategist, instead of the amateurs responsible for their by-election disasters this year. But we're now being told that Levidow got Sunak to implement a long-term strategy at the start of this year, nearly 12 months ago, and Sunak basically got cold feet and abandoned the plan in summer. So Sunak has appointed this guy to run his campaign, and yet he's not following his advice. That means Sunak doesn't have full confidence in his own chief strategist. Now, that's quite serious because you've got the political leader of the party and the election strategist for the party not fully confident in one another. That's going to create cracks that Labour can exploit. And you couple that with the fact that Levidow already has very few assets in his locker. You know, you look at the situation, you think, well, there's quite a lot of senior Tory MPs. It's in their interest, the Conservatives, to lose because they want to take over the party. Their factions want to take over the party, right? They can't do that if Sunak wins the election. Then you look at the ones who are loyal to Sunak or loyal to the party and will actually put in a shift. And it's like, so who are their stars? Who are their star turns that they can put in front of the cameras? You know, you've got Grant Shapps, Michael Gove. That's it. That is it. You know, David Cameron, very unpopular with the public. Rishi Sunak himself, utterly useless. James Cleverly, utterly useless, quite lazy. Who've they got? So Isaac Levidow really doesn't have that much to use. His resources are limited. And if Sunak doesn't even have complete faith in him. So we have this assumption that the polls will tighten as we get to the election itself. And there's many reasons for supposing it will. But you do have to wonder if something might not be different this time. You know, Labour was straight onto this report of a meeting with Cummings as another illustration of how Sunak is completely out of ideas. You know, thinking about bringing back failed lunatics because he doesn't know what to do himself. The Conservatives may well spook some members of the public with Labour's borrowing plans because they'll have the mainstream media taking part in the con, raising the fear. That's possible. But Labour do have some ways to defend themselves against it. With Labour suggesting that Sunak is out of ideas, what can the Conservatives point to in their defence? What are Sunak's ideas? Other than cancelling more infrastructure projects and trying to resurrect the ghosts of Tory past like David Cameron and Dominic Cummings. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.